What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Deus Ex, one of my all-time favorite games, and I know I've made at least a few videos where, like, you've briefly seen my desktop. I literally have this game on my desktop. Anyways, we're gonna play on realistic difficulty. We're gonna make it as hard as we can do it. And this is going to be a non-lethal stealth playthrough, or a non-lethal stealth build, I guess you could say. And here's a trick right off the bat. The pistol skill that you're trained in, downgrade it. And then you can upgrade computer, electronics, lockpicking, and low-tech, or weapons low-tech. And this is clearly some kind of oversight on the part of Ion Storm, because when you start the game, even though we refunded the skill points from the pistol weapon skill, we are still going to be trained on pistols. So it's a literal absolute everything, you know, one of those everything to gain bugs, I guess you could call it. But electronics, lockpicking, computer, and low-tech weapons, which is melee weapons, is what you want to invest your points in to reach trained level. Technically, we refunded the points so that we were untrained in pistol, but like I said, we are going to still be trained in pistol weapons, so no loss there whatsoever. I'll be showing all the story cutscenes as we go through the game, and that's mostly because of times when we want to select specific dialogue options, particularly, one of which is going to be here in the first level on Liberty, or the first part of the game on Liberty Island, I should say. I should mention that these walkthroughs, I'm going to try to segment them into levels as best as I can, but it's not always easy because, this game has pretty much constant consecutive, has a constant non-stop consecutive structure, kind of like Half-Life. I guarantee you, since Half-Life came out 2 years before this, it was Ion Storm's inspiration for structuring the non-stop story progression of this game. But anyways, to try to give an idea of what you're doing in this game, it's mostly an RPG with elements of like first-person shooter, and as well as the unique elements of first-person sneaker, which by this point only really existed in the Thief games. Anyways, let's get started on Liberty Island. You'll notice I skipped the training, which is separate from the main game. I didn't want to do it because it's skippable, so no point to show it off. You pick up the crowbar to smash the boxes. One of them has a lockpick, which you want to take.
Welcome aboard, Agent.
So now we're going to meet our own brother, Paul Denton.
Welcome to the Coalition, JC.
We ourselves are, even though you can name your character, it's pointless because the character's name is J.C. Denton. Anyways, as we talk here, Paul is going to give us 3 weapons to choose from to get things started. Either a mini crossbow with tranquilizer darts, a sniper rifle, or a GEP gun, which is a rocket launcher. Since we're going for a stealth build, and we're mostly going to ghost through the game as much as we possibly can, obviously we want the GEP gun. In all seriousness, the GEP gun does have a couple of uses in the early game, which is the real reason why we're taking it. A sniper rifle is not something we're ever going to use because we're not being lethal at all.
I'm going to give you a map of the island.
And then,
If you can get to the north dock,
as for the crossbow with the tranquilizer darts, that absolutely has its uses throughout the game, but don't worry, we are literally about to get our hands on one here really soon. In fact, here on Liberty Island, we're going to be acquiring a lot of our standard items that we're going to have on the hotkey menu throughout pretty much the entirety of the game. We'll go through them as I get them. Anyways, let's get things started. More crates we can smash with our crowbar. One has a prod charger, which is going to be used for. We have an electric stun gun called the electric prod. That's definitely something we're going to use a lot. You're going to want to steal the stuff off of that dead soldier. He has a baton, another important item. He also has a candy bar, which we actually want to keep for future use a little bit later. However, the pack of cigarettes he has, you can drop those. We have no use for those. What's funny is that you can actually smoke in this game, and it hurts your health. But obviously, since in real life you can't taste the nicotine, it doesn't really serve a purpose. It's mostly just there to be funny, I assure you. Alright, so Liberty Island is basically conquered by some terrorists called the NSF. So we need to carefully sneak around them. If you almost get caught, if you get perceived by them, all you gotta do is just break their line of sight, and then a few seconds later, they'll go back to their patrol. Which is exactly what happened right there. This dead NSF trooper has a crossbow. There's different ammo types for it, but this particular one has tranquilizer darts in it already, which is convenient because the tranquilizers are the only crossbow ammo we'll ever use in the whole game. And that's whenever we do use this thing, because it is relatively situational. Anyways, just very carefully avoid line of sight with the NSF troops. Up here is the statue entrance, but we're not going to go in that way. If you listen to what Paul said, we need a keypad code to get in, and we can get it from a guy behind the statue on a pier, but we're not doing that either. We're going to use a more covert entrance behind the statue by climbing the shipping containers to get onto the roof. So we got to be careful here because there's a trooper and a security bot. So to time this right so that we can progress unseen, we're going to hide here so that that trooper over there makes another pass. And then another part of the game which we'll be introduced to pretty soon, not here, but at the UNATCO headquarters right after we finish our job here, is augmentations. These are basically literal superpowers you can upgrade yourself with. And there's various different ones. You get them through augmentation canisters. Now, what I'm doing right here is wrong. You do not want to hide here from this guy. You want to sneak over to the other side and hide from him there, because that security bot will see you from right there, as you'll see. So yeah, not what you want to do. Alright, but thankfully that's an easy fix. Just like that. That way you're behind this guy and you can carefully progress. Now we just need to carefully trail behind that guy dead ahead. Going back to augmentations, each augmentation canister has 2 augs you can choose from, and the 2 choices accommodate a specific part of a specific body part. Like, for example, augmentations for your legs that can either silence your footsteps or make you run faster. There's augmentations for your subdermal that can render you invisible to either human enemies or electronic security, both of which we're actually going to be able to get because of the very specific way I'm going to acquire those augmentations later in the game. You know, stuff like that. We're mostly going to be getting stuff that's going to benefit stealth, or stuff that we need for situational use. Like the spy drone, for example. There's a lot of augs that can benefit combat as well, like the ballistic armor, or the aggressive defense system, you know, stuff like that. But we're mostly getting stealth-oriented stuff. So anyways, going back to what we're doing here, once you reach these shipping containers, you can climb up. You'll need to move some of the steel crates around to climb higher at certain points, but you'll just work your way to the roof, and then we're going to want to go around this way. Because we go this way, we can discreetly access a stairwell that'll take us up into the actual statue, which, considering this is Liberty Island in New York City, it's obviously the Statue of Liberty, but for some reason the game just doesn't want to call it the Statue of Liberty. Anyways, just stay out of line of sight and make sure you're sneaking, and you should be good. Now, one thing I wish this game had, since the basic stealth mechanics are kind of similar to Thief, is the ability to, you know, a tracker that shows how well hidden you are in shadow or how well visible you are in light. That really would have been nice, because in this game, it mostly just seems like enemies can spot you depending on how close they are to you, and also how long they stare at you for. It's kind of confusing and not really fully realized, in my opinion. But once we're here, climbing the statue is really easy. We just have to sneak around everybody. Because our objective is to go to the top and interrogate the NSF leader, which we're doing. We had a secondary objective to rescue Agent Gunther Herman, who is like a heavily augmented cyborg that works for UNATCO, who we are working for currently. I'm deliberately skipping that objective because this early in the game, with hardly anything to work with, it's actually really hard to do that objective. But there's no real consequence for skipping it. If anything, it actually makes ghosting this part of the game much easier, since it eliminates the stress of completing that objective. Now, here's a dialogue you have to be specific with. Choose the second dialogue option.
Where are you taking it?
The first dialogue option, where he basically tells him, I can give you back to the people in a body bag. Do not say that. That's obviously a threat which will cause him to aggro, and we don't want to have to fight him. So just choose the second dialogue option. Pick up that augmentation canister. Very important you pick up that augmentation canister. In order to give yourself an augmentation from a canister, you need to use a medbot, which they are scattered throughout the game, and they're usually in safe hub zones, like the UNATCO base, for example, which is where we're going to. Anyways, after reaching the NSF leader like so, the UNATCO troopers will now have control of Liberty Island, and every single solitary NSF trooper is now dead. So we're going to go down to the ground floor area. That crate has a lockpick in it, and here's something we're going to be doing a lot in the game. Whenever we see an ATM, we're going to hack it and steal the money. You need to be at least trained in computer skills in order to hack. But obviously, we gave ourselves computer skills before starting the game, so we're good. So now what we're doing is
They sent us in to
basically
pick up
just
the pieces.
scrounging the area for some stuff we can take. Like that med kit. There's another lockpick here. There's a lamb, which is which is like an explosive device, which you can either throw like a grenade or plant on a wall and use as a claymore, basically. An accuracy mod, which whenever we get these, we're either going to put them on the crossbow or, after we get it, the stealth pistol. Another lamb right there. I know it sounds weird to take explosives for a stealth build, but trust me, the lambs are gonna... There are plenty of situations where the lambs come in handy. Planting a lamb on something and then shooting it with the stealth pistol causes what I like to call a silent explosion that doesn't cause all the enemies to freak out. So there's plenty of points in the game where we're going to be doing that. Trust me. So yeah, once you're done scrounging for stuff, we'll go out the front doors. To the left here is another crate. Yeah, these crates with the blue circles and the white triangles on them, you always want to check those because they probably have something you want in them, like a lockpick or a multi-tool, for example. So before we head to UNATCO, we're going to explore the outside of Liberty Island now that there's no hostiles at all. Prod charger and a pepper spray gun. This is another main object we're going to have. We're not actually going to use it that much throughout the game, but there are at least 2 situations throughout the game where it's going to come in handy. Basically, if we're in a situation where we absolutely have to knock out all the hostiles in order to do the objective, or it's not really viable to ghost through the situation, there's a few times where you can encounter a group of enemies, and here's our first multi-tool right there. Make sure you take it. And then the pepper gun, in combination with preferably in combination with using the cloak augmentation once we have it, lets us kind of blind the enemies, and then they'll be stunned, and then the best thing to do is to pull out your prod so that you can tase them unconscious. I guess you could use the baton too, but the baton is not very strong until you've reached master level with low-tech weapons. Take that hazmat suit, and there's another multi-tool up here. Take it as well. Trust me, you want to stockpile on multi-tools and lockpicks as best as you can. So to get back to this area, hit the button on the back of the forklift to raise the mast, and then you want to ride it so that you can go over that generator. You obviously do not want to go through the electric shocks. Our first biocell, which replenishes our bioenergy, which is required to use augmentations. Now, throughout a lot of the game, at least, before the Brooklyn Naval Shipyard, we're not going to be using biocells that much because our AUG use is we're going to be using our AUGs very sparingly. But as we get further into the game, we'll be using and abusing our AUGs, and we'll be drinking biocells like they're water bottles or Gatorades or whatever. So you want to hoard those things, trust me. So what I showed is basically everything you really want to find here on Liberty Island before entering UNATCO. So we'll head over to the UNATCO entrance, and there's just really one more thing we want to do. There's a UNATCO trooper outside the front door who will try to sell you some munitions that he's acquired in the battlefield.
I guess you were just following orders up there.
We actually want to buy something off of him with the money we have so far. What we're going to buy off of him are tranquilizer darts for 60 credits. That way we've got some extra darts for the crossbow, and we should be stocked up more than well enough for most situations where we're going to use it. But of course, whenever I find tranquilizer darts, I'm obviously going to take them. So, let's speak to... I don't remember this guy's name, but we just gotta buy the tranquilizer darts from him.
NSF goods are the spoils of war. We're risking our lives out here.
Here we
You're
go.
60 for the tranquilizer darts.
So much for that minimum force approach.
And then, last thing to do is we have a scripted dialogue with Paul, and then we'll be ready to enter Netco. And here is where I'm going to call it for part 1 of this consecutive walkthrough.
I didn't know UNATCO handled
Since I'm trying to structure these walkthroughs into quote-unquote levels, this is going to be split up into a lot of episodes. So, I'm going to be at this game for a while.
I'll meet you in Manderley's office.
But I'm trying to structure it as best as I can for the sake of YouTube videos. I know this is more of a game that's better for streaming, but I like making YouTube videos. Anyways, that's it for now. I'll see you next time.